Good morning. Good to be back with you. Oh, I'm nice and strong and powerful here. I got my outside voice inside. Well, could we turn these lights on? I just noticed that in the video last week, it was a little dark. So I think for the speaker and for the video, it should probably be on. I know, but since we don't need it right now, then we'll just go ahead and turn it on. Anyway, good to be back with you, and I'm continuing with a series which I feel is important for us to continue with. This is The Eye of the Storm, based on the book Embracing Conflict and Creating Peace. We need to bring in a technical expert on our lighting system here. There it is. Yay. Let there be light. Yes, yes, yes. So I just want to, as a little, what do I want to say? As a sort of a, I can't say it, whatever it is. Just a introduction to the introduction, I guess, would be why I'm continuing with this series, and we're going to go into yet several more weeks. It's a 7-week series. We profess these teachings that we say our statement of faith every week. Spirituality is, for many people, because we are oriented in terms of learning, stays in the mind. And in other words, as we study over the years, even in meditation, we can end up acquiring a concept of what truth is or spirituality is. And unless we really sort of test it in the crucible of our own lives, in other words, unless we bring practical application to these ideas, then they remain as really nice ideas. In other words, they remain somewhat distant from our own knowing, from our own embodied experience. So why this book and books like this are so important for us is it takes the spiritual principle. It doesn't abandon the spiritual principle by applying them into how are we going to do our life. Knowing this truth, how do we do our relationships? How do we do our work? How do we show up in the world when we have, particularly in this case, how do we deal with conflict? And how is conflict evidence of who we have forgotten, in other words, the true self, so that we understand that spirituality can guide our way forward in ways that do not compartmentalize spirituality. Because, there's a lot of people who go to church on Sunday, and then now it's back to reality. Come Monday morning, I have to go back to my job, into the world, and I've got to drive on the freeway and deal with those people. And, there's this notion that spirituality is something that sits apart from the practical living of everyday lives. And what Unity prides itself on, really, is that it's practical spirituality. In other words, it doesn't require that you have to, project this reality into some imagined reality, but that you can bring it right into your experience of everyday life. Because we say that the presence of the power and the love of God is right here and right now in you. It isn't something apart from you. You don't have to sort of cross some chasm of distance of time and space in order to have a spiritual experience. You don't have to wait till you die to go to heaven. Yeah. We're here to awaken to the truth of our own being here and now, and then to take that understanding and apply it to the daily activities of our lives. Does that make sense? And I know a lot of you know that, but I think, I guess maybe I'm sort of defending my stuckness on these long series, but because I think they have a build quality in them. As we continue to hear the same message over and over again applied in different contexts of our life, then there's a continuity. There's like a stream of consciousness that grows in us that allows us to be able to dip our toe into that stream, or draw water from that stream as we go through our daily lives. So that's sort of my defense of a long series. If I needed to, I don't know, but anyway, there it is. So I begin again with the introduction. No one is what? Against you. It hasn't changed. Isn't that good? This is the absolute truth. You may not believe it now. You may have a lifetime of evidence to the contrary. But until you realize that the entire universe is what? For you, you may never experience your wholeness and true worth. Purpose is to awaken you to the truth that there is only one presence and power at work in your life, and that this presence and power lives in you as the Spirit of God. For this reason, no one or nothing can be against you. To realize this is to claim your divine inheritance as a beloved creation of God. Yes? Yes, yes. So this is week 5, I think week 5. We have 2 more weeks to go. And we talked about the 4 winds or conditions that support the presence of conflict in our life. Yes, again, starting with one presence, one power, which seems to be the answer to anything that might ail us. Yes, but what happens in the human experience is that we have these experiences that seem to separate us from that truth. Now, nothing can separate us from the truth, right? Because it's omnipresent, always present, all the time. And it doesn't start and stop. It doesn't, like when people say, where does God come into this? Well, that's it's an erroneous question, because God never went out, When we think that God has left the building, or it's a godless experience, it's only our perception that creates the experience of the lack of love or peace or wholeness or happiness. And those 4 winds or the conditions that support conflict are separation, which we talked about, misperception, competition, and defensiveness. And competition is the one that we're going to be addressing today. And when we talk about competition in this context, we're not talking about like competition like in a race, for example. We're talking about competing ideas or competing goals. Have you ever had competing goals in your life? Like you say, I want to make more money and I want to work less time. I want to take more vacations and I want to be a millionaire, or whatever. You find that you have these things that go on in your own experience where you have competing goals and values. Well, that could be an inner conflict, a conflict within yourself, yes? But what really bothers us mostly is our conflicts with other people. So in relationship to other people, we have times when your goals, some people seem to get in the way of your goals. Yeah. In other words, they don't want what you want, but you want what you want. And so in the context of a relationship, it feels like your competition is developing, like who's going to win this one? I want this and she wants that. And so when that happens, then we can oftentimes sort of lose that sense of abundance, that there's enough of everything. There's enough time, there's enough money, there's enough love. And we begin to feel this sense of, I need to win. I need to prevail over this person who's not sharing my goal or my value in this situation. Do anyone know about this? Just me. Okay, that's all right. Anyway, so that's what. So the third attribute of wholeness, which is the antidote or the elixir for what ails us, is purpose. And purpose is the eye of the storm for competing values and goals and needs. So in any relationship, there's a mixture of needs and wants and priorities, and when what we want or value gets in the way of someone else, then conflict occurs. The danger of competition in relationships is that someone must eventually what? Lose, right? And the loser becomes diminished and angry and resentful. And then we think, well, the winner's got it all then, right? But No. The winner loses as well, because the reward for being right is a reinforcement of one's inferiority. Think about that, right? If you win, but in winning reinforces your inferiority, because needing to be right, which is driving your aggressiveness, is a behavior that masks or protects your own sense of insecurity or inadequacy. So that when we're finding ourselves needing to be right, we can certainly justify it by saying, oh no, the reason I need to be right is because I am. No, I need to be right. No, really, I am right. So me arguing for being right is that because I am right. But the need to be right is oftentimes a cover for our own sense of insecurity or own sense of inadequacy, and that we push our agenda in order to sort of cover that over. So whenever we find ourselves disconnected from the truth of who we are, it generally generates some kind of behavior that has us pushing against life, pushing against, the river, the flow of life, whatever it is. That can be other people's opinions, that can be other people's wants and needs and desires, and when they conflict with our own, then we find ourselves pushing harder, when we realize that if we really felt completely abundant and we felt our own self-worth clearly established and embodied in our own hearts, we wouldn't need to be right. We wouldn't need to win, would we? Because there's no loss. There can be no loss if you're experiencing wholeness, for example, right? So when we're realizing that we're sort of really pushing really hard and trying to make our case, and it creates conflict with another person, we have to ask ourselves, where the heck is this coming from? Is this coming from some principle, a principle that is something that needs to be advanced in the situation? Or is it coming from a place in me that feels like if I don't win this one, I'm going to be diminished in some way? My self-esteem is going to be challenged. I'm going to feel less than if I don't prevail in the situation. So that's a good awareness piece, yeah? So going on, so purpose, as we're saying, now purpose, as we're going to define it here, is not like, in the human sense. Purpose, the way we're defining it, is really to be connected to the truth of our being. That's our purpose. In other words, it's our divine purpose. And it's the way he writes it in the book. He says, purpose is the universe's intention to be, through you, the presence of God. Purpose of the universe's purpose is to be, through you, the presence of God. So this is, in other words, you have to, as this instrument or as this vessel, that we have to be intend for that presence and that power and that love to be expressed through us. In other words, we have to be the willing channel for the presence and the power and the love of God. It's not just enough to say there is one presence and one power and one love. We have to be the instrument. We have to be open, accessible, and receptive to that presence and that power. In other words, we have to be the expression of the one presence and power. And that takes willingness, intentionality, and oftentimes a sort of a discipline when we realize that our hearts are closed and that we're really expressing our ego, we're expressing our need to be right, or the competition comes up in us. When we're doing that, are we really on purpose in a divine sense? No, because to be on purpose in a divine sense means, am I bringing love into this situation? Am I bringing wisdom into this experience? Or am I needing to be right? Or am I needing to defend some sense of not enoughness that I hold as this false sense of self? Yes? So your spiritual purpose, and this tags well on what Bill said last week, your spiritual purpose is to be the Christ of God in your world. Yes? Jesus was the Christ of God in his world, and you are to be the Christ of God in your world. There is only one Christ, and we're all it. Just to define, of course, Bill did this well last week, but a lot of people use the word Christ synonymous with Jesus. And that's a misstatement because Christ was not Jesus' last name. And Jesus, in truth, Jesus became the Christ, right? And what is the Christ? The Christ is the anointed one, or the more in current language, we would say the awakened one, or the enlightened one. So Jesus became fully self-realized child of God, son of God. You and I are all made in the image and likeness of God. That is our original nature and still there. But we somehow have overlooked it, and we continue to overlook it. And it's sometimes described as a veil has come down that obscures us seeing the truth of our Christ nature, our divine nature. And so we don't express love and peace and wisdom and generosity and abundance not because that isn't the truth of us, it's because we're not connected to the truth of us in a particular moment. Does that make sense? So that's sort of when we say we're here to be the Christ of God, it isn't that we aren't that, it means that we are here to express the Christ that we are. Yes? So one person I thought said it very well, one minister, unity minister said, we are perfect expressions of God, imperfectly expressing. So that says it pretty well. In other words, there's no question that we are perfect expressions of God because that's our nature. That's the way we were created spiritually, yes, but we are not perfectly expressing. So the work, if there is any work to be done on this journey, this human journey, it's for us to get back in touch with the knowing of our own divine nature, and then to bring that forward into expression. And when we do that, we're happy campers, right? Everything that we thought was missing dissolves in the knowing of our true nature. So that's what we're up to. So what is my purpose in this situation then becomes the question, and every difficulty that confronts us asks us, who are you really? Who are you really? When we find ourselves struggling, when we're in conflict, and when we're really feel like we're frustrated by life or by other people or by situations or by the world, the way the world is showing up, and all of these human emotions come up for us, which are perfectly fine. I mean, it's all part of being human, anger and frustration and anxiety. The question then, the deeper question is, who am I really? Because what we want to do, we think that we just want to get our way. We think we want to change somebody, or we think we want circumstances to align with our preferences. Yes? But what we really want is to be happy, right? We really want to feel that wholeness and that self-worth. That's our deepest longing, because that's the homecoming signal that's calling us back. That's the light that's calling us back home to realize and to express our divine nature. That's what we really, really, really want. So the question is not, how do I get this person to change their mind, or how do I navigate and manipulate life circumstances to align with my preferences? The question is, who am I? And they keep asking that question until we come up with the deep knowing of our own spiritual truth. Because when we know who we are, then we can express that divine nature in that situation, and it self-corrects any tendency for us to go off the rails, right? And to try to make life be a particular way, or make people be a particular way, in order to satisfy this deep yearning that we have. When we realize that we have that already within us, then our response to life and response to other people is modified by that knowing. So we are all on a journey, and we are all in this process of awakening to God's presence in our life and remembering who we are. That's really what this journey is all about. It's our job description, and regardless of how it looks and feels, really, this is everybody's job description. Think about it, right? I mean, if we're all made in the image and likeness of God, if we're all spiritual beings, then wouldn't there be one purpose for all people? even though it looks like we act differently and looks like our desires and our motivations take on many forms. But aren't those just like a myriad of, diverse and a multiplicity of forms of behavior, all trying to get the same essential needs satisfied? Yes? So, yeah. So regardless of how it looks and feels, that no one is against us. And when you're living on purpose, you see that even someone's ill will towards you is them, could be transformed into a blessing. Yes, because if you see that someone who is being angry with you or unkind to you, or even someone who hurts you, that they are really calling you to back to who and what you are. Because have we noticed that if someone acts ungodly, and then it evokes in us an ungodly response, is there any wonder why we have wars? But there's what we're here to understand is that how somebody acts does not dictate how we must act. How somebody behaves is always a call for us to remember who and what we are. I mean, when we look at the conflicts in the world, and that this has been going on for, millennia, that we have been attacking each other, and, with this whole notion of not enoughness, right? Because we have this sense of not enough, then, I want your land, and I want your oil, and I want your money, and it is constantly being driven by a human need that can be satisfied by an awakening to who and what we really are. That the answer to peace in the world, like we say every Sunday, or sing every Sunday, if we want to have peace on earth, it really must begin with us. Right? Because we just can't expect that the world is somehow going to self-correct unless there is a correction of the perception of who and what we are. Unless we know ourselves to be the Christ of God, unless we know that all that we are seeking is already within us, unless we know that the love that seems to be being withheld from us in a relationship with someone else is only a false reflection of our own lack of self-love, then we're going to continue to try to make other people wrong and make other people responsible for the fulfillment of what seems to be missing in us. And isn't this a prescription for conflict, small and large, individually, in communities, and in the world? We can do better. So here's sort of something you can work with during the week, a little statement. When you are aligned with the truth of who you are, you can be the way of God. To be the way of God. Remember, Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. Yes. And by the way, parenthetically, I am is what he said. I am the way and the truth and the life. So was he referring to himself, or was he referring to the I am, which is the spiritual name for all of us? Yes. The I am. It's what we truly are, is the way and the truth and the life. So if we want to be the way of God, then we have to be connected with the truth of who we are. And if we're not connected to the truth of who we are, then we're not going to be the way of God. We're going to be in the way of God. So the question in any moment is, am I being the way of God, or am I in the way of God? And that's a real simple, checklist for you just in every given moment. Wait a minute now. Okay, I know I must be in the way of God because I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I want to kill this person. It's like, that's not the way of God. What would be the way of God? And just asking that question is a pause in the reactivity that oftentimes frustrates our relationships. Yes, but if we can take that, that little pause, that count to 3, count to 10, count to 100, whatever it takes, and then ask the question, am I in the way of God here, or am I being the way of God? Because that's an invitation to your higher self, to God, to there's an opening in this field of infinite possibilities to make a choice that's more connected to the truth than connected with your feeling of that you're not good enough, you're not enough, your inadequacy, or your sense of unfulfillment. We cannot succeed in our relationships with other people as long as we feel that they're responsible for our happiness and well-being. Would we agree that that's true? So then where does the responsibility lie? Oh boy, that one again. So I like this. I'm going to read a little bit from the book. He says, whenever you are allowing God to move through you, you are the way of God. If God is moving through you, what are you manifesting? Unconditional love, acceptance, non-judgment, prosperity. Even in the most difficult situations, and actually, especially in the most difficult situations, we have the opportunity to be the way of God. You are the way of God when you unconditional love and accept people just as they are. Is this easy? No. We are the truth of God. Ask this question. What is the truth of this situation? You are the truth of God when you are a witness to the activity or presence of God in the situation. We sometimes call this holding the high watch. Ever heard that one? Holding the high watch. Yeah, Unity, I don't know where that came from, but probably from Myrtle or somebody. Holding the high watch is seeing the truth in a situation. In other words, appearances may be one thing, but then the truth is there is no lack. There's abundance, there's love, there's peace, there's wholeness here in this situation. That's holding the high watch. Even though you can see, at the relative level, there are things that are amiss. But the relative is not the eternal, right? This is a temporary manifestation of God energy that's showing up in this particular way. But the truth is that there is a possibility for God's love and peace and wholeness to be manifest here. And because you hold that possibility, then you don't close your mind and you don't close your heart and you don't close off the possibility that there can be another outcome other than you getting your way or you guys going your separate ways because you can't find a way back to the truth. So your witnessing frees you to see the situation as fluid, organic, and responsive to the power of prayer or divine intention. You will know the truth, and the truth will what? Set you free, baby. So that's all I have. I want to do a little meditation with you. Next week is Father's Day, and I'm going to be with you. Next week, we're going to talk about non-resistance. I think non-resistance might be one of the most misunderstood and yet powerful teachings that there is in this spiritual work that we do. So I'm excited about sharing next week's message with you as well. And we also will have musicians next week. We're going to have Dallas and Linda, I think. Anyway, they're a couple, and they've performed down at Unity of South Sound, and Star found out about them and connected them with us, and so we have hired them to come and do music for us. So it should be a good Sunday next week, as it always is, but just a little extra special. So let's just take a moment, shall we? Let's go within as we recognize and acknowledge what we have heard through our physical ears. Now it's time for us to open our own hearts. They haven't been opened already, and I invite you to do this by taking a deep breath and breathe into your heart as if your heart were your lungs. Feel your heart expand. And then as you let the air out, just feel the relaxation and the calm descend over your body. Breathing in life. Breathing out limits. Breathing in love. Breathing out enmity. Breathing in peace. Breathing out conflicts. Continue to breathe now, and as you do, feel your heart expanding, feeling this light, this love, this peace growing in you. Allow your heart to open a little bit more. You understand that the capacity of your heart is unlimited. You know that unconditional love is possible. We allow love to have its way in us. There are no boundaries. There are no conditions. No limits. And we just allow this love to grow and expand outward now through all of our body and our mind, healing and restoring all of us. Letting this light that is love itself illuminate every corner of our being, even the dark places. The light shines in the darkness cannot overcome. And aligned now with the truth, we have the eye of the Master, the single eye. I see only the truth, is what I am. And in this knowing, I can be the way of God. I can be the way of truth. I can be the life of God. So I affirm that this high and holy life can be mine in expression as it is in truth. And I dedicate my life from this moment forward to remembering this truth, to asking the question in any given moment, what is the truth here? And am I being the way of God? You may wish to bring to mind a situation, relationship, challenge perhaps, or something frustrating in the world. And then apply this inquiry. What is the deepest truth of this situation? Not as the world sees it, but as it is in truth. Not in judging by appearances, but in righteous judgment, which is seeing the truth, whole truth, nothing but. asking ourselves, what is the way of God in this moment, situation? How can I be true to who and what I truly am in this situation? How can I be a more perfect expression of the one presence and the one power, the one love, the one life? What would truth have me see and be? For as the song says, we are only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. We have the truth, the way to guide our life. So we give thanks that we have seen the way forward, that it is accessible to us in every moment of our remembering what we are, as we are, and our purpose for being. Thank you, all great masters who have shown us this way. Thank you, Spirit, that you are alive and well in our minds and hearts, illuminating our path in every moment to the realization of this truth on earth as it is. Forever, through whatever.